I see you have your own photographers with you, Morfell too. I fear that our cameraman is just following His Highness for 2 seconds, but he will be here very shortly to get your photograph. Here we go. Okay, Morph L2, I've been told that we do have photographs already taken of you. They've been taken from the back, so ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Okay, time now for our first panel session of the day. Decentralized autonomous organizations stand out as a revolutionary force reshaping traditional governance and business models. This discussion explores traditional business models and also how DAOs are fundamentally altering how organizations are structured and operated. Please give a warm welcome and put your hands together for our first moderator of the day, Irina Heaver.
Hello, wonderful people. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for participating in this absolutely amazing event where new regulations have just been announced a couple of minutes ago. Can I invite my esteemed panelists, please? And I'm not sure where we're going to get the mics from, so if the organizers can give us mics, that would be awesome. Hello, hello, hello. Fantastic. Well, I guess it's 2024, and we can finally say that each and single one of us here can call themselves a member of a DAO, because we're here all as partners and friends of RAK DAO. Welcome. The future has arrived. Back in 2014, when we did a first blockchain project, I was general counsel with Maersk, and we did the first blockchain project, people thought, you know, what's the use of blockchain? What's the use of decentralized technology? People were thinking we were wasting money. And here we are, just a few years down the road, 2024, and we have the rulers and the governments are talking about decentralizations and the value of decentralizations. Which brings us to DAOs. It's a company, unlike any other legal structure, where members actually making the decision, making the governance decisions and the future decisions of the company. And I predict, humbly predict, that our children and grandchildren will not work for companies, they will be members of DAOs. Even right now, I'm sure most, at least Anton, I know 100%, is a member of multiple DAOs. So am I. Who is a member of a DAO currently? We have few hands. Who is looking to become a member of a DAO? Everybody else is raising their hands, I'm sure. So for those who are just looking to get into DAOs and understand what it is, let's start this insightful panel. Can you please spend a couple of minutes introducing yourself and also tell us about your experience with DAOs? It could be good, it could be bad, because nothing is rosy, right? There are still legal, regulatory, and technology challenges.
Thank you so much, Irina. This mic is working, I hope. So I'm Elias Ahonen, and it's a great pleasure to be here. And thank you for having me on this panel. I'm from Finland, and I'm part-time resident here in the UAE. And I've been involved in the blockchain space over 10 years now, with various, whether it was running a consulting company, writing a couple books on the history of the industry, writing for Cointelegraph, which is one of the leading news organizations. And recently, I've been spending a lot of time researching DAOs as part of the University of Turku in Finland, where we have a Finnish government-funded DAO research group looking specifically at how DAOs are helping meet the UN development goals in a more efficient way, a new type of organization. I also work with Horizon DAO, which is part of the Horizon blockchain, or Zen blockchain, on their special counsel, making sure that proposals that come into the DAO actually meet with the constitution of the organization. So it's a new type of role, a new type of governance structure that is allowing international organizations to operate across borders in an entirely new, different way. And that's extremely exciting, and I'm so happy and honored to be in the middle of all of this.
Fantastic. Karen, tell us about your experience with DAOs and what work do you do in that space?
Sure. Is it working? Yeah, okay. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm really happy to see many faces and obviously the UAE flourishing. So my name is Karin Lorenz. I'm from Switzerland and I'm a Swiss lawyer, Swiss trained lawyer. And thank you so much. And I structured many DAOs out of Switzerland, like over 40, 50 DAOs. The trend actually came, it started like maybe three and a half years ago. And during that time, I was actually here in the UAE, spending a lot of time here, so that's why I'm a resident here. But the first DAO actually that I structured was at my laptop here in the UAE, and that's how it started.
Isn't this amazing? The Swiss Crypto Valley pioneered virtual assets, pioneered DAOs. Ethereum Foundation was set up in the Swiss Crypto Valley 10 years ago. And here we are, two Swiss sitting here in UAE. You know why? Because UAE is the Web3 capital of the world and RAK DAO will be the center world capital of DAOs. I think that is very, very telling when you have two Swiss lawyers sitting here in the UAE, promoting the UAE as the destination for DAOs and the virtual assets and the Web3. And of course, my dear friend Anton, if you don't follow Anton on LinkedIn, you are missing out. He's breaking out the news in a very, very coherent manner, and he's absolutely one of the OGs of the Swiss Crypto Valley. And guess what? You just moved to the UAE, right?
Yes.
I mean, how telling is it where the #1 jurisdiction has been overtaken by the UAE, which is absolutely fantastic. Anton, you are a founding member of the Swiss Asset DAO, and you are combining, I think, some of the hottest topics right now, hottest narratives. Narrative #1 is the DAOs, the decentralization, and also the real-world assets. Everybody talks about the real-world assets, that it's the hottest narrative, but there's not much excitement going on. Please tell us what is it that you do with the Swiss Asset DAO and how are you merging these two exciting areas?
Yeah. So first, thank you very much for inviting me here. Thank His Highness for the warm welcome and inspiring speech. And also thank you very much to the leadership of RAK DAO for the great event and organization. As you were saying, there are two Swiss Swiss lawyers who are now in UAE. I wanted to protest and say there's a third person here from Switzerland who moved to UAE. So to tell you just a little bit about myself, I was part of a group of pioneers in Switzerland who kind of built the crypto valley in the early days in 2013, kind of when it all started. So I co-founded the first ever crypto exchange in Switzerland called Like. And did a successful exit. I also co-founded the first ever crypto market maker in Switzerland called Floftech. Also did a successful exit. And as you said, for the last 2 years, I'm a founding member and a chairman of Swiss Asset DAO. And the two key goals of Swiss Asset DAO is to enable tokenization of real-world assets. But the second very key point that we wanted to achieve is to structure a DAO in a legal way. So a few years ago when we were looking at this topic and where I had actually a lot of great conversations with Irina and who has, with her wisdom and advice, supported us quite a bit, is how do you structure a DAO, something that lives in the digital asset world, in the decentral world, how do you structure it that you are compliant with the law and regulation? And I have to say that we are very happy to achieve that more than 2 years ago in Switzerland in a form of an association. So I was extremely happy today when I saw the announcement by Dr. Samir about the approach that you have taken and very excited to contribute to that.
Absolutely, and now you can achieve all of that here in our native UAE and here in Ras Al Khaimah. So, Elias, before we dive into complex governance and legal side of DAOs, let's start from the very beginning. Just in case somebody is not sure what a DAO is, we'll start from the very beginning. So, start from the top. When you're setting up a DAO as opposed to a standard company, which is actually did you know that the LLCs that we all have right now are only 45 years old? Did you know that? We all pretend that LLCs has been here forever, but no, they're only 45 years old. And I guess we have a cycle of innovation, right? About 40 to 50 years when new structures come in, and now is the time for DAOs. So as opposed to structuring a standard company, which is only 45 years old, not so old, and why would you go after DAO? What problems are you trying to solve?
Thank you. So, of course, if we look back 40, 50 years ago, what did the world look like? It looked similar to today in many ways, but people traveled a lot less, people moved between countries a lot less, and they interacted much less with people from other cultures. We didn't have Zoom. We didn't really even have conference calls. I mean, we weren't quite sending telegrams, and if we were, it was a different type of telegram than today. And of course, we didn't have the internet, which has changed things drastically. Back then, corporations existed on paper in filing cabinets, and it was a very, very different way of organizing things. Now that we have blockchain, which I refer to as a kind of digital physics, where before on the internet everything is connected to a server and it can be deleted, it can disappear, this website can go down. It was in some ways less reliable than paper records, but with blockchain we're able to create something that is effectively written in stone, that is filed away and can be referred to later, that is accessible by any computer in the world. I think that's the fundamental innovation that has made possible this new form of organization that is constituted upon the blockchain.
Absolutely. The world was slow. The world was inefficient. Who remembers typing up a letter, signing it, and physically sending it to a government office to have something done? Who remembers it? Only one guy remembers. Okay, 2 guys, 3 guys, 4 people remember it. Because I see some older people in the audience. Maybe they're just like trying to hide their age. I remember that. When I started working as a lawyer, we would have to type up the letters, print them out, sign, seal, and then send it with a delivery guy, right? Now we have an app. The world became fast, and if you want to compete in the nowadays fast world, you don't have the privilege of wasting your time. That's where the immediate governance and consensus comes into place, right? Through the governance tokens. Talking about the governance, Karen, how is governance and the decision-making of DAOs different from standard companies or traditional old-style companies?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's obviously different types of like traditional companies, but like to generalize it, I would say that basically the power shifts from the management team to the community, to the members of the DAO. And I think that's really very, very significant and very important. So it's basically a democratization of a governance structure. Very similar actually to the Swiss concept, to the Swiss political concept, which is quite interesting to mention here, yeah. But maybe just to mention, maybe you ask it, maybe you will ask it as well, but the governance also has its hurdles, right? So shifting the power to the community is not necessarily easy and not necessarily good. I mean, we can discuss that.
That is a wonderful example. In Switzerland, in some villages still right now, people gather in the town center and to make decisions all together. But Swiss people are very passionate about the country, very passionate about decision making. Everybody wants to get heard. And switching off to DAOs, how do you make sure that the DAO members are as active and as passionate about the governance? Because yes, you can set up a DAO, yes, 2 or 3 members will show up to vote, but how do you motivate people to be active members? Because that I see as a huge challenge, Anton.
Yes, so I can share experience from practice, how we managed the community, how we tried to get them involved, and also then how we distributed different tasks within the DAO to the management, to the board, to the supervisory board, or to the community. So as the esteemed panelists have mentioned, the DAOs are really about the community. So it's not about ourselves as the founding members or a chairman of the DAO. It's about the community. And it was a very important point that the speakers have made, that it's about involving the community into the decision-making process. Now, if you think about it, you can say, well, the community can technically decide on every single matter within a DAO. And if you try to do that, what you very fast learn that the community doesn't want to do that. So they don't want to decide on every single day-to-day matter because it's just too much of a burden to them. It's too much of a hassle. So a very key learning experience that we had at Swiss as a DAO is that we need to create different structure layers of governance. So you had to implement management. You need to implement operational team. You need to implement a board. But above them, at the top, as a key and final decision maker is the community. In the way you structure it is through something called articles of association, where you clearly define in a legal way which decisions are left to the community, which is usually you want them to involve them on the key decisions, right? Which decisions you pass on to the board, who also then has a legal responsibility to act in line with the Articles of Association, and what things does the management do on the day-to-day basis. Now, I might have seemed like I have described here kind of like a normal company, how they operate, but the big difference that I had as a founder and as a shareholder of several companies, but from the DAO, is that in the DAO, it's key that the community always has a vote in every matter they had. So the way we practically implemented that is that in the Articles of Association, we actually put a very clear directive that the community can always bring any point they want up for debate and for a vote to ensure decentralization and community engagement.
Can I just ask you something, because that's very interesting. So what I observed with the DAOs that I structured is that, like, to motivate the community is not always as easy. How do you do that? I mean, do you have like advice on that?
Yeah. So I can give you, again, practical experience. First, compare it how it worked when I was in companies. So in companies, we would have 1 year shareholder meeting. You have to do it by law, and 4 board meetings every quarter. So this is how we do it. And I always thought this was already too much for me, you know, as we were running companies. But if you can imagine it, as a founder and a chairman of a DAO, I had 2 times per week, weekly calls with the whole community. And because we had a global members around the whole world, so we would do it digitally. So twice per week we had a community call where I could not believe it a few years ago. If you asked me, would I be doing community calls? And that's actually the way you had to do it. And I had to create a very fine balance. What do I bring at that community call? What do I present to the members? I need to inform them. I need to be diligent that they know what's going on. At the same time, I couldn't overburden them with information.
As a council member, I agreed to 1 week community calls. I can't do 2 weeks. How do you manage 2 weeks? That's crazy.
That's why I have gray hair now, so.
Okay, fantastic. You're younger. You still have the energy. I only agreed to once a week community call as a council member, and everybody, all the members can bring the issues, put in the decisions, but also they can do it during the week if they feel like. That is how it's managed. Turning back to you, Alice, what are the most active or the most beneficial use cases of DAOs do you see? Because it's easy to create a DAO. We can create a DAO collecting stamps right now. It's that easy. But is it effective? Is it beneficial? What are the best use cases have you seen so far?
Thank you. So I just finished up with a research paper that looks at the top DAOs in the market according to market cap. And the reason I used market cap is simply because many DAOs, of course, have tokens trading on the open markets, on the decentralized exchanges, and that gives them some type of valuation that can be relatively compared. So if we look at the top 10, we see that most of them are involved either in blockchain infrastructure or decentralized exchanges. And that makes sense because blockchain is where DAOs operate, and it's a common good. It's a common interest of everyone that is active in any DAO to begin with, and decentralized exchanges as well make the DAO tokens tradable. So these are public goods in a way of the ecosystem, so that makes sense. Now, that said, whether market cap is the best way to measure impact rather than simply speculation and the financial interests of users is a different question. And as I mentioned, at the University of Turku, we're doing research on how DAOs are helping with UN development goals, whether it's providing sustainable water to communities in sub-Saharan Africa, whether it's promoting things like gender equality, where members of a DAO can be anyone. They can be from anywhere. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter necessarily if you're wealthy. It doesn't matter even in theory if you can speak the language, if you can write the code and read the code. So these are ways in which DAOs are promising a very new kind of era for organizational operation.
That's fantastic. And now, so there's awesome use cases, and which is great. But I still see, as a practicing lawyer in this space, a lot of legal and regulatory gray areas. That is why having a legal wrapper which can interact with the off-chain world is very, very beneficial. And a completely shameless plug-in, we're running a DAO legal clinic. So if you're looking to set up a DAO, please in the afternoon come, we'll talk to you, we'll talk you through the regulations, we'll tell you how to do that from the legal and the regulatory perspective, because I'm sure all of you know how to do it from the technical perspective, because technically it has been possible from the very beginning, because the technology is 10 to 15 years ahead of the legal and the regulatory regime. Karen, what sort of legal issues and burdens do you see that DAOs face every day, because you're actively practicing in this space?
Yeah, I would say whenever I meet people or people who are members of the DAO or founders of the DAO, I try to convince them to get a legal wrapper around the DAO. And it's for a very simple reason, because basically if you create a DAO and you're a founder of a DAO or a member of the DAO, you could personally be liable for the actions of the DAO. And this is obviously not something that you want to as either a founder or as a member or whatever you are part of the DAO. But that's really something that people have to aware of. And I think we need to create awareness that the legal wrapper is crucial. Because also we have quite aggressive regulators right around the world. I won't mention any names, but you know probably which one is quite aggressive. So these regulators would go after the founders, and the founders, they will be personally liable with their own funds, with their own money. And that's something that obviously no one wants,
but
right?
Not only the founders, also the contributors, the members can be personally liable for the mistakes of a DAO, and that's what you don't want. You don't want to be liable for the mistakes of your fellow member, and that's what happens when you have an unincorporated partnership. Unfortunately, we still live in the real world, so we unfortunately or fortunately still have to comply with the laws of the real world. And the legal wrappers mitigate that.
Yeah, exactly. And then another thing is very simple. I mean, how do you sign contracts? Like, who signs the contract? Who's the counterparty? So if there is no legal entity, then it's probably one person, maybe the founder. But again, then the counterparty is not a legal entity, not the DAO, it's the person. So these are like, a couple of like issues that you face if you don't have a legal wrapper around the DAO. That's why I'm very much in favor for the regulation that RAK DAO has now published. It's amazing. It creates a legal wrapper and a lot of security for founders, members, contributor, and whoever is in the DAO, yeah.
Anton, I know you are not a lawyer, but being an OG founder 3 times over, you can teach lawyers a lesson or 2, or maybe a few. And there's even several times when I reach out to you, it's like, okay, we have an issue, how would you deal with that? Because a practical experience sometimes is much more important than theoretical legal experience, or legal theory. So from your point of view as the OG founder, and the DAO connoisseur, what are the issues, the legal and the regulatory issues, apart from interaction with the real world and the limitation of liability that the legal wrapper provides, what other issues founders and members looking to set up a DAO should be mindful of?
Yeah. So when we took an approach to set up a DAO, a key goal for us was to create trust among our community and among the regulators, and also keep the reputation of the DAO and of the DAO members intact. Because when we were setting up our DAO, we approached very high-profile people in Switzerland, very high-profile people in Europe, and what we really wanted to tell them that we want to do everything in a legal way, in a legal manner. So trust and reputation was so key for our DAO, especially when we want to attract high caliber of people at the beginning, especially when we don't have a track record. Now, one matter where many times people have asked me how we plan to deal with it is, how does a DAO take on assets? How do you manage assets? And how do you conduct a normal and regular KYC AML through that asset acquisition? Now, the reason why I mentioned that is because DAOs today are actually managing extreme amount of money. So people might not be aware that DAOs in aggregate manage over $25 billion. So if you put all the DAOs together, their treasury, the assets that they have, it's more than 25 billion. I mean, this is serious money, this is serious. But then always is the question, how are these assets managed? Who is managing them? And how are they acquired, right? And I think for many countries around the world, there is a clear process to do that. So for instance, in UAE, the Central Bank of UAE clearly defines the AML laws. We have regulators in different Emirates that also clearly require that. And from our perspective, the last point was, do we, through management of assets, trigger certain licenses? For instance, if you manage an asset in a professional way, you become an asset manager, so like a fund manager, right? Or if you take on deposits from your members, you can even trigger a banking license in many jurisdictions and many countries around the world. So I think this is one of the key challenges of the DAOs. To be very honest, I think that a lot of DAOs are not doing that properly because they don't have the legal wrapper. They maybe have not done the onboarding of such assets in a proper way. And I think this is a big opportunity. So if RAK DAO offers a good framework for DAOs to manage assets, onboard such assets, I see this as a big opportunity. And I was very happy with the announcements that I saw here because I think this is an amazing opportunity.
And that's a very good point that you mentioned. $25 billion as assets of DAOs, but don't forget 11 million people are members of DAOs. So more than the population of the entire UAE. So these regulations are not for UAE or for Ras Al Khaimah. This regulation is for the world, and for those currently 11 million people, plus we're expecting a bull market anytime after, when is it, 5th of November? When is the date? We're expecting bull market, and during the last bull market, over 100 DAOs were being created a week. Not all of them, not even some of them, received proper legal support and advice. That's why I'm so happy to, have more lawyers joining the space. But the bull market that is coming, it is absolutely coming, and there will be multiple hundreds and thousands of DAOs created. And with all my heart, I believe they will be created here in Ras Al Khaimah, the DAO capital of the world. Thank you very much to the wonderful panelists. Please give us, please give them a round of applause. Establish your DAO in a legal manner, and of course take care of the cybersecurity and all the other really important matters, because this is still an emerging space. It's still not super easy, but with the DAO regulations here, I'm sure it will be super easy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.